The refineries are owned by NNPC. NNPC has to drive the shop refinery repairs.
Join Moneyline with Nancy.
Mondays to Friday,
11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Be ahead. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, Iliyasu Gashinbaki, the Chief Executive Officer at Discovery Cycle Professionals, is joining me right now. It's been a while. Mr. Gashinbaki, how are you doing?
Yeah, we did. Yes.
We did, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the Nigerian, is it a slang there or something?
Yeah.
We just did, you know.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you.
We're looking at the economics of production in farming and equipment costs.
Yes.
We're taking it a different tilt because when it comes to agriculture, there are quite a number of issues.
Yes.
For agriculture, at the beginning of the program or just before the break, I did talk about access to capital.
Okay.
Access to capital can get you a lot of things if you have money.
Yes.
You know, farming inputs, R&D on one side, a whole lot of things.
Yes.
But let me start by allowing you to give a brief background, perhaps into what we're discussing today.
Okay. Essentially, as you are aware, when you look at the cost component of production in agriculture, equipment capital is a significant cost that farmers across the continent struggle with because of its cost, because of the technology capital requirement that is embedded in it, and of course other issues like maintenance and the rest. So it's a significant chunk, and I think Africa, we have not fared well in trying to see how do we deal with the issue of equipment acquisition for farming. And again, if you look at the other side of it, predominantly we are farmers. And of course, the equipments are, all of them are entirely manufactured outside Nigeria and outside Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, how can we actually be self-sufficient in terms of getting equipment? Because all of them are manufactured outside, except perhaps, I don't know if they're fabricating some here in the country, because I know some African countries, I think there was a guy I saw that came back from the UK, and he started fabricating just some agricultural equipment. I think he's here in Nigeria. He's doing it in Jos, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that news some time ago. Since we can't do that, how do we get that addressed?
Well, we just have to do what they have done in China, they have done in India. Because if you look at if you understudy India for the past 4 decades and look at China, you discover that they started just like we started. Like 4 or 5 decades ago, India and China were probably exactly where we are today. But what did they do? They understand that when you are dealing with agricultural mechanization, if you are dealing with the equipment, start first with the less complex equipment, the ones that you can easily manage, easily assemble. Then you graduate in terms of fabrication, in terms of technology transfer. Then that is how you build your equipment capital. So the transition has to be from simpler equipment, simpler farm machinery, to more complex, high-tech, 5th generation technology. So it has to be there. And what these countries have done is that they had a clear plan that, look, we are going to do this for the next 5 years and we'll be here. In the next 5 years, we'll be here. In a decade, this is where we will be. And they took all the steps necessary to make sure that the private sector took the lead in ensuring that they have all the support to get them where they are. And that is why today we are importing from China, we are importing from India, including Pakistan and some of these small countries that we can say in terms of growth trajectory we should have been in the same category. So that is key, our ability to understand that you cannot go and bring a 5th generation technology Because in terms of technology now, we are talking about 5th generation technology of machines that are intelligent and smart. We are not there yet. We are still in a country where we have 1% mechanization, 10%
agriculture?
Yes. 10%.
So is that bad?
Yes, 10% animal power, and then 89% human labor. So all this noise you hear about, we
want to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, it's not going to happen until we deal with mechanization. Because mechanization is from land development to land preparation. And then you need to also now deal with issues that has to do with irrigation. And irrigation has 2 components. You have to deal with the civil part that has to do with the water sources. Then you deal with the infield. That's where you plug in the irrigation equipments themselves. And then you now graduate to crop care, processing. So it's an end-to-end thing that you can't do one and leave the other.
1% mechanization
1%
in the country?
Yeah.
So that means that, of course, a lot of our farmers are still on the subsistence level, using cutlass, hoe, and co.
Yes. In fact,
human labor is still very much, just like you said, 89%.
Yes, human labor.
So we should begin to turn our agriculture to make it more mechanized.
Yes.
And
you are talking about a population of 200 million people. If you check the world odometer this morning, it's 202. So now 202 million already.
The worldometer, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
They'll give us daily population
That
rates.
is it. So I checked it before this show, it's 202 million plus. Now,
National Population Commission will say, no, we are still 198 million.
So say, no, leave that one. So when you have a population like that, and you just have 1% mechanization, 10% animal power, and 89% human labor, then the drudgery is still there. Because we have not been able to understand how do we transition agriculture into mechanized farming properly. And remember, everybody agrees, including the ADB, that agriculture is $1 trillion
industry.
The
value chain.
Yes, for Africa. And again, we are still scratching the surface. We are using horses, cutlasses, and donkeys in this age. Come on, we should move away from this.
You know, anyway, it's a fresh day, so let me continue.
Yes.
The research, I saw the research that was done, and let me pull it up very quickly.
Yes.
About 5,000 tractors.
Yes.
In the whole of the country?
Yes, that is the ones that are now available that are working. Now you have another 55,000 broken down that are serviceable. Then another 130,000, 38,000 plus that there's nothing that you can do with it other than to recycle it, scrap it, because they are completely wrecked. So, but when you look at the research done by MECA, you will also now found out that they were able to establish the total tractor need. And we are just talking about tractor now in this case. As far back as, I think, 2013 or 2003 or thereabout, Propcon, funded by DFID, did a research, and they came to the conclusion that we need 10,000 tractors, brand new, annually, for the next 10 years for agriculture to make sense in this country.
Annually?
Yes, and that was almost a decade ago. Now that need, based on the MECA survey, it has risen from that 10,000 tractors to 24,000. So we need 24,000 tractors annually for agriculture to make sense. Because we have massive land mass that is under cultivation of close to about 30 million hectares. So, and the significant chunk of that 30 million hectares, you are using human labor. Because that's the 89% of it is that drudgery.
So perhaps that's why it's not even so attractive to young people to come into agribusiness. Isn't it one of the challenges that also needs to be solved?
That is it. As long as the drudgery is not tackled, as long as agriculture is seen to be dirty, it seems to be left for people that are retired. The average age of a Nigerian farmer is 65.
65,
and
yeah.
probably is across the continent. So as long as that's the case, young people, the farming is not attractive to them until you get it mechanized, where from land development to processing, you have machines deployed that they can, that's the only incentive for young people. When they see that the drudgery is not there and when it is properly looked at as this is agribusiness and not just this subsistence farming that we are doing, and we are leaving the destiny of the nation in the hands of primitive and aging farmers. It's not a sustainable thing.
So all this stuff we've been talking about, agriculture, development, we should be self-sufficient, CBN on one side doing intervention, Ankobora's program and all of that, NISAL on the other side doing, you know, what it is doing and all of that. Aren't we just going around in circles, perhaps? You know,
no, a lot is being done. The thing is, for example, CBN has done a lot with the Ankobora scheme. Now, but
and it's still doing more with
yes,
other 10 commodities.
Now, yes. Now the target population for that are smallholder farmers. Now the smallholder farmers, that one is targeting bringing people out of poverty, putting food on the plate, which is good. But real commercial agricultural production also need to run side by side that. Because actually, if you look at the entire Ankobora scheme, it has helped a lot in alleviating poverty. But what we are saying is that Nigeria should be a large food exporter.
Yeah.
Now, the people that will be able to do that is when you move away from smallholder, 1 hectare farmer, who is just farming for his stomach, to a proper commercial agriculture. Now, we have the capacity to feed the continent if we can graduate from that subsistence smallholder farmer to mid-scale, large-scale commercial agriculture.
Now, what is stopping us from moving from the smallholder farming processes, which we have the subsistence level and all of that? If you go to my village now, people would have gone to farms in the morning, weeding their farms with normal cutlasses or even pulling it out with their hands and all of that. What will take us to move from that smallholder farming into commercial production so that we can actually export? Taking a look at even the African Continental Free Trade Area. You're also taking a look at even what is happening now, the borders that are closed. So isn't it a holistic conversation that we should be having? Because at the end of the day, I think, which I also mentioned last week, is that if the border is closed, can we produce what we should eat? Will those smallholder farmers produce them? I hope I've actually like 2 or 3 questions in one.
A combination of things need to be done concurrently. Number one, I think if you have the right policies, deepen them so that you have far-reaching results. Meaning, if you look at the attempt the central bank has done, one of the most ambitious things that the central bank has done in recent, aside from the Ankobora scheme, is the creation of NASAL. Now, the way NASAL is supposed to operate and function is to open up commercial lending so that commercial banks, the capital market, and even in development finance institutions will be able to now lend to the agri sector. Because what are they supposed to do? To de-risk, projectize, remove all the risks so that banks will line up and say, okay, look, I understand what this means and I want to put my money inside. Now, they are doing quite a bit of that. We need to see more of their action. They are doing quite a lot in terms of R&D, in terms of de-risking the agricultural financing. So what we are saying in essence is that there should be more support to institutions like NASA, to institutions like the Development Bank of Nigeria, because the Development Bank of Nigeria also do a bit of guarantees, apart from the fact that
they give loans, they give money to microfinance banks.
Yes, and then institutions like InfraCredit, also that deals with guaranteeing infrastructure, because you see, in agriculture, there is a significant component of it that has to do with purely infrastructural development. For example, you can't have proper irrigation until you have dams and reservoirs built. These are civil works. These are purely infrastructural development, isn't it? So what we are doing with InfraCredit, what we are doing with Development Bank, what we are doing with NASA, these are frontline, cutting-edge institutions that government should support more. More energy should be put towards leading them in opening up the financial landscape. Once that happens, then you see the middle level, high-level players beginning to take interest in agriculture, and that will change it. That will change it. Now, the small one, the strategy of the Anko Borrower scheme is to say, serve the smallholder farmer to have food on the table, to increase the income of the smallholder farmer. That strategy economically may be right, but moving us into a more agrarian, export-based country will mean you need to have the big guys come round the table to take interest in agriculture. And unlocking financing through these key institutions is very, very key. They are doing the best they can, but we are saying we want to see more actions, more interventions, more leverages, so that people will take advantage and play in the agribusiness.
You talked about capacity being done concurrently.
Yes.
No, you talked about development being done concurrently. Do you understand?
Yes.
And the question is, do we really have that capacity to develop all this concurrently? Because there's an infrastructural deficit which will definitely help agriculture.
Yes.
Talking about access to capital, which the central bank and some other initiatives are taking a look at.
Yes.
But like you said, a lot still needs to be done.
Yes.
You're also talking about R&D, research and development, which is also very key.
Yes.
You know, in terms of even the kind of inputs and the kind of outputs that we also get.
Yes.
Talking of even storage facilities, which is also very key, because a lot of the food that we also produce, a lot of them wastes.
Yes.
Do we have that capacity to run all these concurrently? There's an infrastructural deficit of about $3 trillion for Nigeria as a whole. How can we achieve that?
It's breathtaking when you begin to look at how the enormous barriers that we have to progress. But I think also little efforts, once you combine them together, makes a lot of sense. I'll give you an example. When Mecca found out that we have about 55,000 broken down tractors.
In the whole of the country?
In the whole of the country.
Where is it domiciled?
It's all over. They are scattered all over Nigeria.
And the Ministry of Agriculture knows that?
No, the report has been shared to a number of them. But what has happened in that regard is that Nasser and Mecca sat down and said, okay, look, we understand that it will take us almost ₦1 trillion to buy brand new 55,000 tractors. And that will be huge capital flight. If you are taking $1 trillion to go and purchase, or if you say you want to do replacement today. So it doesn't make sense. So what did they do? They say, okay, let us come up with a scheme that will now target recovering of these broken down tractors. And that has successfully happened. And apart from happening in Niger State, the World Bank FADAMA has also benefited from it, because they supported mechanization under the World Bank program. And eventually, the tractors were not properly managed. So it also came under the same scheme. So what I'm saying, efforts like that are efforts that are not just things that should be taken further and deepened, but they are even regional models that should be taken across the continent. Because you see, the issue of maintenance and repair, these broken down tractors that we're talking about, is all over Africa.
Yeah.
It's a continental thing that a typical black man doesn't maintain things. We don't maintain our cars, We don't maintain our houses. Maintenance is zero. So it is, I'm sorry to say this. So we need to be able to understand that, okay, if we are crying, and it's the same person that is telling you that I need more money that I don't have money. I need financing into agriculture. Then the same tractor that you have, you can't maintain it. Typically, a tractor should last for 2 decades and 3.
Yes, but you also need stuff to maintain the tractor. You need money to maintain the tractor.
So which one is easier?
Is it
to go and buy a brand new one that we all aspire for, and you see state appropriating every year? Year by year, they buy tractors. What happens to the ones that they bought?
The former Minister of Agriculture,
yes.
I listened to him some time ago, perhaps like a year ago now, he did say that we don't have up to 15,000 tractors in the country. And the day I heard him say that, I was really so sad. And I also did analyze myself that means we've not even started with
we have less than 5,000 working tractors in Nigeria.
In Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay, for those watching and you want to be part of this conversation, please feel free. In case you want to ask Mr. Gashinbaki any question, you're free to do that. Just go to Twitter right now. I'm there right now. Tweet me, Nancy Ilo. Or you can also find the show, Moneyline AIT, and drop your comments. On Facebook, Moneyline with Nancy. On Instagram, we are there, double hashtag Moneyline with Nancy. Let's quickly take a break, and when we come back, the program continues to stay.
African Economic Congress 2019. The Congress will see debate on the African Free Trade Continental Agreement with Africa's top economists, entrepreneurs, technocrats, policymakers, and chief executive officers. Join over 500 local and international delegates from across Africa as they discuss solutions for Africa by Africans at the African Economic Congress 2019. Date: 4th to 6th November 2019. Venue: Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua Center, Abuja, Nigeria. The 3-day Congress will feature networking sessions, thematic panel discussions, African Startup Challenge, exhibitions, and deal room. For registration, please visit www.aecongress.org. For more opportunities at the Congress, African Economic Congress 2019. Join us in building the Africa we want.
All right, welcome back. Let's quickly take comments and just keep them coming. Hilary in the melee. Hilary is one of our, I don't know, great viewers. Let me put it that way. In fact, I've actually met him. You know, he came to meet me. Okay. So Hilary, your tweet. The agri sector in Nigeria needs a holistic reawakening, given that we have a huge number of farmers, yet we cannot feed ourselves. The present border closure has to a large extent shown the reality of the day. I think that's a good point. Yes. A whole lot of work is still required to fill in these obvious supply gaps. We have a supply gap. Not really of a demand, is it? Not of a demand gap, a supply gap.
Well, in both ways. You see, for the farmers, there are two things. One, they want the right pricing for their commodities. Yeah. So there should be a balance in what we produce and how we produce it. And that is why education for our farmers is key. So if they end up producing and then the prices are no good, and the cost of inputs that continue to go higher because of inflation and other things, then the income of the farmer is eroded. So, and because, again, the farmer is also into farming for his own welfare. Yes. It's for profit. Yeah. So that is another part. But the idea of closing the border, I think, is right, because we cannot remain a dumping ground. And I agree that recently, during the convocation ceremony of Covenant University, Landmark, Oedipo said that everybody who knows how to eat must know how to farm. And I like that. I like that.
Must know how to farm. Perhaps that's why we should encourage smallholder farmers. You should have. But how do you do that?
We should take interest in agriculture to the extent that we produce enough, and not just enough. Because the reality is if there is no balance between demand and supply, then the farmer is also plagued with that balance. So while we are focusing on primary production, creating also access to market is very key. Processing is very fundamental, because if you add value to what the farmer is producing, it's going to be excellent. But again, the farmer is plagued by lack of proper storage, because again, post-harvest losses alone is costing us almost 30% of the total gross production in agriculture. Now, when you have a situation where the losses are so much, to the extent that you are losing up to 30%, is not just also a good thing. So it's tying all the loose areas.
Tying all the loose areas. What does access to capital come into all of this, which is the impediment to agribusiness? Are we doing anything right currently? If we are, enumerate those things we're doing right. And if we're doing some things wrong, how can we right those wrongs that we're doing, especially in access to capital? Because you see that a lot of intervention funds are coming. DBN, BOI, ACOBORA's program, the 10 key commodities that central bank says it wants to help finance. There's the Creative Acts in Financing Initiative. You see a lot of them, BOA, Bank of Agriculture, but yet, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think access to capital, what we are saying is that whatever is being done now, we need more of it. It's very, very critical because it's at the center of it. Now, if you look at it, infra credit, for example, how much of infrastructure can they guarantee when you have 3 trillion deficit of infrastructure? So what that means is that we need more serious, recapitalized players in the credit guarantee space that will guarantee infrastructure needs and infrastructure deficit, so that banks or lenders, the capital market, will bring out their money and put into closing that back. That is one aspect. Another aspect that needs to be tackled seriously is insurance. Now, the insurance component is very, very complicated. And if, as long as the farmer agricultural insurance is not on its 2 feet, then again, how do you expect
there's an agency called NAIC.
Yes, NAIC, Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation.
Yes. Where are you guys?
No, perhaps if they are listening, and what we are even saying is,
they will say
not beyond
they
that,
don't have money.
The NICOM as a regulator and other players in the insurance sector should take agricultural insurance seriously. Enter there and help us de-risk it. They are the professionals. They understand what is needed to open it up so that banks will line up. Because for the banks, as long as there are no guarantees or risks insured, they will continue to play the ostrich. And of course, for the central bank, what they have done, the most ambitious I have seen, which of course, I also don't know where we are with that, is the RSSF, which opened up space. For the very first time, we have compressed interest rates and then no longer maturity period for financing agriculture and manufacturing. But the idea is that how many people were able to even access that. So, but again, you cannot also continue to say that agriculture should be funded through interventions. Because if you say intervention, then we will remain with central bank. That is why NASAL is there.
And how long do we
continue? Is there.
So the ecosystem needs to be developed. So that the markets will just be there, and we really do not depend on these interventions. Because how long will this even be for?
It's not even sustainable if we say it is just an intervention kind of thing. So it has to be in a way that players in the industry are encouraged to play. For example, the Bankers Committee need to understand that even though they will tell you that we are ready, it's insurance that we are waiting for, it's the guarantee agencies that we are waiting for, but at the same time, we know how powerful they are, the Bankers Committee. And they are your people. So talk to them.
The last time I checked, I'm not an MD. I'm not an MD of a bank.
Nancy, you are one of them. So
there you go. You see, this economy is like I'm carrying it on my shoulders. Yeah. But anyway, just before we go, Director, just 5 seconds. Let me ask this question. And 5 seconds answer. Yeah. Is Nigeria in a food crisis situation? Yes or no? Or maybe? Let me give you a leeway. Yes, no, maybe. Quickly, I have to go.
The answer is no. Okay. Let's deal with post-harvest losses, and we are there. Okay. Yes.
All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Iliyasu Gashinbaki, the Chief Executive Officer at Discovery Cycle Professionals, has been speaking with me at least in the last 28 minutes or so. We've been talking about the economics of production in farming and agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Coming to